we have secure technologies that protect us not only digitally, but physically as well. And even digital security depends so much on digital security at the moment, and vice versa. If someone hacks your email account, for example, it doesn't even have to hack your Bitcoin wallet, but they hack your email account, which is probably easy considering that you're using like a password for the last 10 years and the name of your dog and his birthday. So like everyone knows that. And therefore hackers will just easily break in. And now all of a sudden they see an incredible amount of information. Right? They see when you book flights, when you book a taxi, when you order food, and then all they need to do is intercept when you order food and just ring the doorbell a couple minutes before the guy comes, and they're in. So this digital security is essential for physical security for this reason, and that comes with privacy. Right? Keep your passwords private. That's really really important. Keep them random as well, and then use digital technologies that help you stay safe. That starts with a good operating system. Use Graphene OS, use Linux, Pop! OS is a good one. There's more crazy versions out there, but start with those. And then install free and open source applications where, for one, you or anyone else can validate the source code. And more importantly, that they advertise themselves and focus on being a privacy and security respecting project. Almost any big tech app that you see out there has an equivalent feature set in an open source security and privacy maximizing application. So install those and you're more likely to be much more secure on that front. Use password managers. These are critical, a tool that helps you generate random and unique passwords and remember them. Use two-factor authentication, like these time-based codes. Consider getting into actual security hardware. We all know hardware wallets because they keep our private keys secure, but you could get something like a YubiKey, which is a physical to a second factor authentication token, and a lot more on this front. Use Tor, use encryption, use encrypted group chats. That's another critical one where people are quite easy to get attacked. And be aware of the software that you're installing and the links that you're opening. A lot of people get Telegram messages with like, "Hey, join this Zoom link," but it turns out to be a phishing site that actually installs some malware on your computer, and now you're hacked. This happens constantly to a lot of people, including very much in our industry. So check your digital security. That's important. But then also become aware of your physical surroundings. If you could have the most perfect security in cyberspace and have like this fancy multi-jurisdictional multi-sig wallet and extra passphrases and stuff, all generated with dice on like offline computer and things. But you have a micro camera with a drone hovering over there, and they see the 12 words as you're writing your backups. Well, then your digital security is meaningless because your physical security was compromised. So that's why we really need to work on physical security, and that's a very underappreciated topic. So check for surveillance. That's a good habit to pick up. If you see the same faces multiple times in different locations, start paying attention to that. If you see weird people lurking around in a car in front of your house, at least take a picture of them. Maybe walk up and ask them what they need. Then they know that their cover is blown and they need to rotate surveillance people. That's expensive. Try to increase the cost of someone else trying to surveil you. Take a couple circular turns in a roundabout or drive around the block for 3, 4 times and see if anyone is following you. They might stop after they realize that you've actually detected them and move on to an easier target. And check your physical security. Make sure you have good locks that work well. Make sure you actually use them, and consider some security cameras, preferably self-hosted and open source, to make sure that your physical perimeter is secure. The idea here is to add early detection, so you know that an adversary is coming and you can react to it, and then delay, meaning slow the adversary down as he is approaching your center, so that you have time to uh, reallocate your property, take all of the important stuff and evacuate goods and humans from that high risk area. For most attacks, like conflict is not the solution. Very few times do you need to make a last stand with a lot of guns and a lot of bullets. Most of the time, you're better off if you just de escalate and evacuate the situation and move somewhere else. So consider doing this. But then this gets expensive if you need to build a new house every time. So design your physical goods in such a way that they are easily movable, and have have a bug out bag with important stuff and some cash and a passport and so on in your in reach that you can take it and run, for example. Or even better, have build your house out of shipping containers that you can just evacuate as soon as someone has found it, and you put it on trucks and drive away, and it's done. These are, of course, extreme cases, but that shows you that there's a benefit of living in what's known as a temporally autonomous zone. So this is a zone, a physical area that you can protect. You can build early perimeters and detection facilities and delay mechanisms and channeling the flow of people into a certain direction so that you can beef up defenses on this one location. That's an autonomous zone, a zone that you can control and you can delay adversaries from entering. And then make it a temporal, though. Build it in a fashion where it can easily be packed up and moved on if the situation gets too risky. This is, I think, a really, really valuable strategy, and sounds crazy at first, but one realization is it doesn't have to be your property, actually. If you want to do a peer-to-peer trade in a secure environment, just go to a restaurant, go to a cafe. They're semi-public spaces, so it's harder to get kidnapped from them, but still they're private enough, and people usually don't lurk on conversations of others there, so it's not a bad meeting place for something like a peer-to-peer trade. And then don't use the same restaurant every time. Move it each time, add some uncertainty and some confusion, and don't have a predictable routine that would be easy to surveil. So another amazing tool for this is a camper van, right? To have your home, your box on wheels. That means you can de-escalate insanely quickly. In an emergency, you might be able to vacate a parking spot within a minute or less. And that can come in extremely handy if the situation gets too bad. So these are some of the basic operational security tips on both digital and physical front. There's a bit more of this in the book, but there's other books that are much more thorough and in depth on that.
I appreciate that. The one thing I was thinking about as you were saying this is like, it's all well and good. It gets infinitely more complicated with kids. I will say that a lot harder to pick up and move quickly with kids involved, especially young ones. But it's still good to keep these things in mind, and depending on where you live as well, doesn't hurt to have guns. But I agree. The idea is not to have you don't want to be in a firefight. Certainly, like that is a very,
Yeah.
that is not a good outcome. That is a last resort. But yeah, I do like my guns for what it's worth. But yeah, I don't want to have
I'm also a
to
fan
use them.
though of I'm also a fan of non-lethal weapons, and to have tools that you can use to harm, like to hurt and deter and slow down an attacker without actually killing them. In many cases, that stops the situation and de-escalates sufficiently, and it's much less risky for you getting into trouble later. I mean, the legal battles of this might be, insane if you kill someone, especially in countries where you're not legally allowed to defend yourself, and at least with lethal force. But then also just the moral harm of killing someone. I'm sure that this messes with you. I would guess that it's better if you do it for just reasons, like someone trying to come after your kids, uh, rather than aggressive reasons. But still, like taking someone else's life is a heavy burden to shoulder. And if you can avoid that, it's probably good. So having that option of regular like delay tactics on the way, and then non-lethal weapons on the middle perimeter, and then sure have some guns if the guy keeps running, but ultimately have options. That's, I think, the key thing. You have options in where you live, have options in the routes that you take to different places, have options in the tools of defense and fortification, and exit plans. Optionality is, I think, a big friend, and well-defined protocols. So consider spending some time of actually coming up with these types of protocols. Practice helps a lot. You'll probably forget most of the things in an actual situation, but even a little bit of practice might give you enough grounding to do the most reasonable next steps that you have already practiced and that you know about, rather than having to come up with that on the spot.